Did you know the water you're drinking might actually be sabotaging your health and crushing your HRV scores? 94% of bottled water contained microplastics. Yes, that's your Fiji water. Yes, that's your perfect water. Yes, that's your $6, $7, $8, $9, $10, $11, $12 bottles of water. No matter what you're suffering from, no matter what symptoms you're experiencing, if you change the hydration status, you're going to change the way you feel. What's up, champions? It's so good to be back with you. I'm your host, Justin Roethlingshoefer, and welcome back to the Own It Show. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you made the investment in yourself, because today we are going to really dive into something I think that's pretty unique. I think often we forget that our body is made up of 70% water. And when we realize that, we're like, man, maybe the water we're drinking, maybe the water we're cleaning ourselves with, maybe the water that we're exposing ourselves to on a daily basis is actually probably pretty important. And so today we're really going deep into what does that look like. But if it's your first time at the Own It Show, I want to welcome you, because you've made the investment to really create a change in your life. And if you're here to educate, equip, and empower yourself to take ownership of your health and realize life differently. And I just am so humbled. I don't usually talk about these on the podcast, but over the last probably 6 episodes, we've seen a real increase in engagement. And I've always gotten emails from listeners or Instagram messages, but they've been in abundance lately. And I just want to continue to encourage you to keep sending these, because not only does it encourage me to continue to keep putting content out, but it allows me to serve you in a deeper way. It allows, I know there's thousands of people out there listening to the podcast every single week. But it's awesome to be able to have conversation with you and be able just to continue to encourage you, be able to speak a little bit more pointedly to some of the issues you're having or problems you're trying to solve, and really just gives us an opportunity to serve you at a higher level. So keep doing that, because this past week there was somebody that reached out and said, "Hey, Justin, I just appreciate the series that you did on heart rate variability and health, and that 5-part series that went on. And since I've been implementing it, the headaches that I've had for 7 years have gone away. I haven't had a headache in just about a month. And just wanted to let you know that I appreciate everything you do and the platform that is Own It." And so it's messages like this that it's just like, man, we're doing good work. We're doing and getting the information out to you, not just so that you can hear it and have it come in one ear and out the other, but ultimately have it transform your life. Have it something that makes such an impact on you that you get to live life differently. And that's my prayer for every single person, is that you would realize life differently. You would realize life at an elevated level. You would realize that you can heal from the inside out, but it requires you to do things differently. And when we know what different is, we can ultimately make the choice to accept it. I see too often that we're sitting here and not really knowing what the truth is, not really knowing what this level of purpose means. And so that's why today it's just inspired me so much. As I was walking through the airport about 2 weeks ago, I was looking at everybody with different beverages in their hand. When I was on the plane, they were passing out little plastic containers of water. When I was at the track, everybody has their water bottle. And it just hit me like, I need to do an episode on water. Water. We always hear drink more water, but we need to know the truth about the water you drink. And ultimately, how do you fix it? How do we get to have something that is more purposeful and powerful? Because did you know the water you're drinking might actually be sabotaging your health and crushing your HRV scores? So if your HRV is low, we know heart rate variability is ultimately the measure of the language of how our body is adapting to stress and strain. So if heart rate variability is literally the language telling us how our body is adapting to stress and strain, the stress that we're unaware of, the stress that our body is having to adapt to internally, then we have to also accept the fact that water, which is made up of which makes up 70% of our body, is probably pretty important. And so today we're uncovering the hidden dangers in your glass, in your water bottle, in your taps, and the exact steps that you need to fix it. So I'm not just giving you a bunch of knowledge, a bunch of studies, a bunch of information, but we're going to go and give you the exact steps to fix it. And that's why the Own It Show is different, is you're going to get the frameworks, you're going to get the guides, you're going to get the different companies, the places you can go, so that you don't buy something that's frustrating. You don't buy something that doesn't leave you finding the solution. I want you to be solution oriented. I lived too much of my life in this place of being told what to do rather than understanding what to do. And when I went to a space of understanding, it was when I found freedom. And that's where I want each of you to live. I don't want you to feel trapped. I don't want you to be in a prison. I know in the Bible, they talk often about people who would be put in prison and thrown away. And I'm like, man, I'm not in prison. But yes, I actually was. I'm in a prison in my mind. I'm in a prison in my body. I'm in a prison in this environment and home I've created for myself. And until we realize that, we can't get ourselves out. And so we need the steps in order to do that. And so the purpose of our episode is really to discuss the impact of water quality on our health, HRV, and performance, and what it would ultimately cost us if we didn't create change. And so that's number one. Number two is to provide the actionable strategies to improve the water quality and hydration protocols that you have every single day. And so there's going to be some key points today. Number one, we're going to go through some shocking studies about the water contamination and what it is that we're actually drinking and what we're exposed to. We're going to talk about how electrolytes, how hydrogen water and proper hydration can elevate heart rate variability and decrease that stress that's inside your body that you're completely unaware of. And then lastly, leave you with a step-by-step protocol to optimize your home for the water that you're drinking. And so when we come into this, there was a study back in the year 2023 that looked at the analysis of our tap water in the United States. And ultimately what they found was over 250 contaminants, including lead, PFAS, basically forever chemicals that once you take in, they never leave, and pharmaceuticals. I'm going to say that again. The analysis of our tap water from a study back in 2023 found over 250 contaminants, including lead, PFAS, and pharmaceuticals in our water system. And so when we sit into this, and this just wasn't one state, this wasn't just one city, this was the United States as a whole. And so when we think about this, we think we're drinking pure tap water. We think we're washing our hands with pure tap water. We think we're showering with pure water, but actually we're showering with contaminants, drinking contaminants, washing our hands with contaminants, including lead, PFAS, chemicals that live forever, and pharmaceuticals, things that have a massive impact on us. And so the impact on us basically is long-term exposure to these are linked to cancer, hormone disruption, and immune dysfunction. I did a YouTube video on why we're seeing such a drastic change in hormones. And the title of the YouTube video is Before You Go and Take Hormone Replacement Therapy, Try This. And this is hormone replacement therapy for men, for testosterone, for women, for early onset perimenopause, you name it. It's like this hormone replacement culture we live in is just another quick fix culture. It's just another, hey, here's the pill, or in this case, the injection solution. But what does it actually mean to do something purposeful, to do something meaningful, to do something that is going to create a greater level of change? And the biggest thing was removing one of the things I talk about 10 things in this YouTube video, was talk about removing the garbage from your water, because we have to come back to the truth, which is your, and actually even before I tell this truth, I'm going to ask a question. What's the biggest organ in your body? It's the biggest organ in your body. Some people are going to go your brain. They're sitting here and going, are my leg muscles an organ? No, your skin. Your skin is the largest organ in your body. And I do a example of this in a lot of my keynotes is I put 2 glasses of water in front of me and I ask for tap water, and I pour the tap water from into one cup, and I pour the tap water into another cup. And then I take this little dropper, and the dropper is a chlorine dropper. It identifies if there's chlorine in the water. And I put chlorine drops in one glass, and I put my hand in the other glass. And the glass that I'd put the chlorine drops in, it turns yellow, showing that there's a presence of chlorine. Then I take my hand out of the glass. I drop chlorine drops in the other one, and it stays clear, showing that there's no presence of chlorine. Well, what does that mean? That my skin has absorbed the chlorine, and where has it gone? Into my bloodstream. And so that's why this study of showing that over 250 contaminants, including lead, PFAS, and pharmaceuticals, live in our water system. And that is why we ultimately have this long-term exposure link that creates cancer, hormone disruption, and immune dysfunction. And so these are the things that you can do that are so, so critical, so, so pertinent, and so, so important. And so the second study that we saw that I really started to look into was another study back in 2022, but it showed that 94% of bottled water, and again, this is something that I'm so bullish on. 94% of bottled water. Yes, that's your Fiji water. Yes, that's your perfect water. Yes, that's your $6, $7, $8, $9, $10, $11, $12 bottles of water. 94% of bottled water contained microplastics. And I don't know the exact stat on this, but there's been a lot of numbers thrown out. And so I don't even know if this is true. So I'm having a hard time even saying this. But what they're finding is that each person has approximately now a credit card's worth of microplastics flowing through our body, flowing through our system. And microplastics act as endocrine disruptors, or we know the endocrine system is all responsible for hormones. And so when microplastics affect the endocrine system, it's going to disrupt and majorly affect HRV by elevating your stress hormones. Because we know that the endocrine system is supposed to create hormone flow and really help make your hormones act appropriately. And when something disrupts it, the body goes, wait. This is not normal. I need to protect you. Thus, I'm going to release more epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, because we have to be on watch and on stand because something wrong is happening in the body. There's something foreign inside. So how do I actually counteract what's happening? Well, it only knows one way, which is to activate the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response. And so these are what the things that happen. And I don't think we often think about the impacts. And so when we think about bottled water, it's like, man, I have bottled water all the time. My wife and I used to always buy bottled water. Now we only buy water in glass, or we only use water out of our water filter, putting it into aluminum water bottles. And so there's a very specific process that we have now that we no longer do a lot of these things. And so these studies just constantly, just like when I read them, I was like, man, with everything I saw that prompted me to do this podcast, it makes so much sense as to why this is a major issue, because common contaminants and ultimately their effects on our body are crazy. Like, look at these three: heavy metals. So heavy metals, which were some of the contaminants in those 250 from that study, such as lead and mercury, they're neurotoxins. They're not only linked to chronic, long-term, low-level inflammation in the body, but ultimately a lowered heart rate variability. When we have that chronic inflammation in the body, no wonder we can't sleep. No wonder we feel chronically inflamed. No wonder we feel bloated. No wonder we can't lose the weight. No wonder we feel constantly irritated. And so these are the things that are going on inside of us. It's not just the fish we have to worry about in terms of what we're ingesting with lead and mercury poisoning, but ultimately the water that we're drinking, because I guarantee you drink a lot more water than you do eat fish. And so let's start paying attention to it. The second ones are chlorine and fluoride. And ultimately they disrupt the gut biome. It's critical. It's critical for stress resilience and HRV improvement, making sure your gut biome is healthy. And so what and how much water are you drinking that contains chlorine and fluoride? And I think you remember the story. I talked about this in several podcasts, but the one most recently that I did on creating a health haven for the environment of the home we live in, when we tested our water, there was high amounts of chlorine and fluoride that we needed to ultimately change. And so that was something big. And then the third one is pharmaceutical residues. Yes, because guess what? Not only do the pharmaceutical companies charge you an arm and a leg to get um, on these products, but then they're also manipulating the system. So that's what your solutions are to all your health, but they're dumping pharmaceutical residues into our water sources. And so these hormonal imbalances are ultimately affecting adrenal function, which at the end of the day impact HRV. We know the adrenal gland is, again, a hormone producer and impacts cortisol and uh, adrenaline release. And so if all of a sudden we have, and again, this is what bothers me, is so often we just see the doctors and the medical system say, hey, you have adrenal fatigue. You're suffering from adrenal fatigue. Really, that's like saying you just pulled your groin muscle. I've studied a lot of anatomy. I've studied a lot of cadavers and all these different pieces that look at the muscle and the physiological components of a human being. And I've never found a groin muscle. I've found the adductor longus. I found the adductor brevis. I've found the quadriceps muscles, but those are what make up the groin. And so when they say groin, it's because they don't actually know what you pulled. It's just like when they say adrenal fatigue, they don't actually know what is causing the fatigue in your body. But at the end of the day, it's because you have hormonal imbalances that came from different neurotoxins and contaminants that came from different sources, like the pharmaceutical residues that they've been pushing, or the inequality of your food that you've been eating, or the poor quality of your water that you've been drinking. And so it's like, oh my gosh, that's the solution, not, oh, you have adrenal fatigue, here's another pharmaceutical. And so this matters so critically because when we have low HRV chronically, we know that it has an impact on our long-term age. We know that it is an effect of what our biological age is actually happening. So contaminants create low-grade inflammation, elevating stress responses, and ultimately suppressing parasympathetic activity or rest and digest activity, and ultimately enhancing or upregulating sympathetic activity, fight or flight response. And over the course of time, that becomes exhausting on the body. And when we don't actually absorb the water that we're taking in, we think we're drinking water, but not only are we not absorbing it because it can't get into the cell, but it's flushing our body of nutrients. When it flushes our body of nutrients, our cells can't get the nutrients we need, and thus we stay with the same symptoms, the headaches, the nausea, the brain fog, all these things, because we don't have the raw materials, the vitamins, the minerals, amino acids to actually help us thrive. Not only do we actually do that because we don't absorb the water, it causes us to be dehydrated. And so when dehydration happens, the blood thickens, causing the heart to have to work harder, meaning your resting heart rate is going to be elevated, and thus lowers heart rate variability scores. I'm hoping that a lot of this is starting to click for you. It starts to make sense. It starts to be like, my gosh, why has nobody ever told me this before? Why have I never been able to put this together before? Because it's not always told in this way. And so what do we do about this? What do we do about this in terms of where we're going? Well, number one is we have to make sure that we are purifying our water, right? Purifying our water. And when we think about purifying our water, we have to make sure that we have a filtration system that works. And so we have to test our water. I want to make this as simple as easy as possible. You can go on Amazon. You can get water test strips. Throw your water test strips in there. Check and see what contaminants are present in your water. I guarantee you, even if you have a filter, even if you have something right now on your fridge, whatever, test your water because there is going to be some irregularities that are there. So that's number one. Number two is I really want to help you understand how to hack the hydration of your body to elevate HRV, because it's like, hey, we know water's important. We know we need to throw filters on our water. And in segment 3 of this, kind of just after this middle part here, I'm going to dive into what you can do in your home to actually create change. But after you get your filtration system, how do you actually now hack the hydration of what you're doing to elevate your HRV? And there's three things I'm really going to want you to do, 3 things I'm really going to want you to lean into. And the first is understanding the role of electrolytes. We cannot just drink water because water is not what gets solely absorbed into the cell. There is a there's a sodium-potassium regulation barrier between the cell and where the water exists. And so we need there to be electrolytes that allow the water to pass over that barrier, that get absorbed into the cell. This is why I always say that you need to start your day with 20 ounces of water with electrolytes. And so we need them because they maintain fluid balance, they support nerve and muscle function, and they ultimately prevent dehydration. And when dehydration happens, we know that HRV drops. And so the best things that we can do are adding a quality electrolyte to our water first thing in the morning. I've told you my most favorite are ATH, that's ATH, Element, LMNT, Protect, PROTEKT. And I even like Baja sea salt, just adding some sea salt because they also have some other trace minerals associated with this. The key minerals, the other one I love is Redmond Relight, REDMOND, Redmond Relight. So those are the big ones, great products, no sugars, no sweeteners, just high quality products. The worst thing I always see is people are like, hey, I don't have any of those, but is Liquid IV good? No, Liquid IV is basically liquid sugar. And Gatorade is the same thing. All these Powerades, the same thing. Go with one of those 5 that I spoke of. And the key minerals to make sure you're including are potassium, sodium, and magnesium, because that is going to help the water get into the cell. The second thing you want to do is you have to start drinking hydrogen water. It is the game changer. Hydrogen water, I've been speaking about it forever. I've been drinking it forever. It's rich in antioxidants. It combats oxidative stress in the cell and supports mitochondrial function, which directly impacts HRV. And so there's a multitude of ways in which you can do this. Number one is you can get a hydrogen water bottle. I travel with my hydrogen water bottle every single place I go, because not only does it create a increase in hydrogen bonds within my water that I drink, which helps with cellular absorption and ultimately hydration status, but it also purifies water. And so the water bottle I have is from Mito Red Light. If you just go mitoredlight.com and look up their hydrogen water bottle, or type into Google Mito Red Light, MITO Red Light hydrogen water bottle, you can find it. They come in a multitude of colors. They can ship it to you overnight, but make sure that you use the code OWNIT. And I think you're going to get 10-15% off that hydrogen water bottle. It's got a cost to it. I think it's about $160-170. But again, it is worth its weight in gold. It's incredible. It's something I swear by. But if you're not wanting to do the water bottle and you're just wanting to do something like hydrogen tabs, make sure that you do the Dr. Mercola hydrogen tabs. They ended up having the same part per million hydrogen quantity and hydrogen potency as the hydrogen water bottle. The only thing that I like more about the hydrogen water bottle is it doesn't change the flavor of the water quite like a tab does. It puts a little bit of a different flavoring in it, changes the taste. Not a big fan, but it's easy to travel with, and obviously it's cheaper. I think it ends up being, for the bottle of 90 tablets, ends up being about $40, I believe. And you want to use about 2 to 3 tablets a day for maintenance mode, meaning everyday use, and 4 to 6 tabs a day during high periods of stress, when you're traveling, when it's cold and flu season, when you're maybe hosting more people at your home, or there's high stress periods of work. That's how you're going to want to use those. The other thing I'll tell you is order matters. So you're going to want to do your hydrogen water first. So drink about 8 to 12 ounces of water, of hydrogen water first, and then go with your electrolytes second. That's how you're going to want to do that order. It's going to prime the cells to absorb those electrolytes even at a higher level. It's going to change the game for you. And so again, making sure with your hydrogen water, it's first thing in the morning, and then immediately post-workout for the best and maximal benefits. Then the third thing you're going to want to do is your daily water intake guidelines. We know you need half your body weight in ounces of water. Okay, half your body weight in ounces of water. If you're just operating in your day-to-day life, half your body weight in ounces of water. I'm a 200-pound male. That means I need 100 ounces of water per day. If I was to just go through what my regular routine looks like, I need 100 ounces of water per day. That means my first 10 ounces of water when I wake up are from my hydrogen water bottle. Next, I have a 20-ounce water bottle that I've put my element into. I'm drinking that throughout the rest of my day from about, let's say, after that, I usually go get my workout in. After my workout, I have another 10-ounce water bottle of hydrogen water. I will then have about 60 ounces of water throughout the rest of the day, 2 big 30-ounce water bottles. And then before I go to bed, I'll have another 10 ounces of hydrogen water. That is what my day typically looks like. I'm getting about 100 to 110 ounces of water a day and making sure I'm getting about 30 to 35% of it from hydrogen water. That's how I work my day. That's how I flow my day. That's how everything works. Now, there's some adjustments that I make. If I'm going to altitude, if I'm going to the mountains, if I'm going skiing, if I'm speaking somewhere at altitude, I take in 20% more water. So I would make sure that I went from 100 ounces to 120. Very simple. When I travel via plane, I add 20 ounces per hour of flight. So if I have a 2-hour flight, I'm drinking 140 ounces of water. When I'm sick, rarely happens, but Elise just was getting over a cold. You have to drink 25 to 30% more water so that you flush the toxins from your body. You flush the toxins from your body. So 25 to 30% more. So I would take in 125 to 130 ounces of water. And then during exercise, this is just in addition to the half your body weight in ounces, is 8 to 10 ounces for every 20 minutes of intense exercise. So again, for an hour workout that I'm doing, I'm going to add somewhere between 20 and 30 ounces of water. So 120 to 130 ounces of water per day. So that's where the water guidelines have to be. If you're going to altitude, if you're traveling via plane, or when you're sick or during exercise, you have to add to your half your body weight in ounces. And so when you think about those things, this is the best way to elevate your heart rate variability, utilizing electrolytes, utilizing hydrogen water, and then making sure that you have those guidelines in place so that you're doing things well. And I've given you some frameworks already that you can use. I've given you some guidelines, but now how do you fix your water at home? Because so many of us, I think, fail to remember that this is really important. And so number one, I mentioned this up above, is you have to get a filtration system that works. The activated carbon filters are the best. It removes chlorine, pesticides, and different VOCs, which are different contaminants. So activated carbon filters. Your water drop is an activated carbon filter. And I just love it. The second thing, and that's what I use at home. The second thing you could use is a reverse osmosis system. Now, these are best for heavy metals. If you find heavy metals, fluoride, or pharmaceuticals in your water system from the water test that you do. But again, remember, these reverse osmosis systems are a little bit more expensive. So that's going to be number two. The third thing you can get is a UV filter. And this is effective against bacteria and viruses. Now, I don't have a UV filter. This isn't something that I utilize. Again, my water filter that I use in our home is called the Water Drop. It's super easy. It's super simple. All you literally have to do is change the activated carbon filter on the bottom. And the reason we went with that was because we didn't have heavy metals in our water. The fluoride, the chlorine, the pesticides that we found, the Water Drop system was perfect for removing those. And then made sure that we just continue to change the filter every month or so. And so the last thing that we did, or the last thing that you should do to have water filtration systems that work, is the Jolie filtered shower heads. We've changed all the shower heads, not just in our home here in Miami, but also in the health house that we have up in Canada, up in Mount Tremblant, that people go and rent. And so what I love about our health house up in Canada is that we give people examples of what their environment at home could actually look like. And then once people stay there, they use it. They're like, my gosh, I feel so much better. I understand what I'm doing. We give them the opportunity to go and literally see everything that's in our home and go and purchase it and instill it in their homes back home. And so when you use a Jolie filtered shower head, it reduces chlorine exposure. It's beneficial for your skin and microbiome, and ultimately eliminates the inflammation that you have in your body. And so I can't tell you how amazing, I feel, using the Jolie filtered water head or the shower head, because I don't know about you, I need a high powered shower head, and there's a lot of shower heads that just kind of dribble or just like throw it to you like a hose. They just done a bang up job with this. Like, it's incredible. And all you have to do is screw it on. It took me, like me, I'm not a handyman. I hire people to come put pictures up on our wall. I'm not a handy guy, but all I had to do was unscrew the one that was on and screw on this one. That was it. And changing the filter in it changes every couple months. So really, really easy. So that's number one, get a filtration system that works. Number two is structuring and enhancing your water. So what does this mean to structure and enhance your water? Well, we already talked about making sure you have electrolytes in your water, but there's the three things that we talk about. If you're adding a filter, you're going to want to make sure you add trace minerals. So replace minerals lost, especially if you have the reverse osmosis system. It pulls everything out. Again, pulls everything out. So with all of our water, we use something called trace minerals, which you can get at Whole Foods. And you just simply have a little squirt in there, or we put a couple drops of Baja sea salt in every water we drink, and just able to replace the minerals that were taken out. So add trace minerals to your water. The second thing is add electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, at least once a day to create high concentrated water that's going to help you. Number two is use hydrogen tabs or use a hydrogen water bottle for antioxidant support and improve cellular hydration. You're going to want to do that for about 30 to 35% of your total water intake per day. And then when you are sitting into the water that you're drinking, make sure you're getting the quantity necessary. It's so important to make sure that you get the quantity amounts, because I see so many people who think they get the amount of water, but then they actually start tracking it. They're like, my gosh, I actually don't. The third thing that you want to do in terms of preparation of your water is use stainless steel or glass containers. Like this should be just something that doesn't have to be said at this point, knowing the microplastic and the contaminations that are there. We have to avoid the plastics. We have to avoid those plastic containers that we're putting our water in, because it's just creating microplastics and seeping of the PFAs. And so we want to eliminate a lot of those. Even if it says, hey, PFA free, I just don't trust it. I always want to make sure that we're using glass or stainless steel containers to house our water, whether it's in our fridge, whether it's in our water bottles, you name it. And so when we think about this, I want to just close and give you this last little kind of like sample. I know I gave you a protocol for what I do for water and how I operate within it, but if I was to go through the day here, and just you were like, hey, I just want to be able to operate this way. I want to be able to make sure that I'm doing things right. This is what it would look like. So number one is figure out what is half your body weight in ounces of water per day. Figure that out right away. Are you 100 pounds? Cool. 50 ounces of water. Are you 250 pounds? Cool. 125 ounces of water. Very simple. You're going to start your day with about 10 ounces of hydrogen water. That's going to prime your cells. Right after, immediately, you're going to drink 20 ounces of water with electrolytes. That's going to prime you for absorption of the rest of the water. For the next 2 hours, you're going to drink filtered water with maybe some trace minerals. That's going to be probably in that 20 ounce range. For your workout, post-workout, you're going to have about 12 ounces, 10 to 12 ounces of hydrogen water, immediately followed, if it was a heavy sweating workout or you spent a lot of time in the sauna, another 20 ounces of electrolyte water. And then again, throughout the rest of the day, making sure you mimic the other 20 ounces of filtered water with trace minerals or something like that. We know we want to eliminate water intake about 1 hour before bed. We know we want less than 20 ounces, or we want less than 20%. For me, it's 20 ounces because 20% of 100 is 20. But we want to limit ourselves to 20 ounces or less of total water intake after 5 p.m. And then making sure that we are hitting our total water intake. And then any of those things like altitude or air travel or sickness or exercise, making sure we're adding the total to what we're putting in there. But that is the simplest, easiest protocol to follow when it comes to hydration so that you can ultimately win at the end of the day, because we know the importance of water quality. Hydration, water makes up 70% of our total body. And I really wanted to give you guys actionable steps that went along with this for you today. And so if you're interested in figuring out, hey, what are some other ways I can improve my HRV, go to theownitshow.com, theownitshow.com. And I've got the ultimate guide for improving HRV, which has the water guide or the water optimization guide. And again, make sure that you follow us at Own It Coaching on Instagram, or myself at Justin Roth, so that you can again follow us there and get some more daily tips and just see how these things can happen. But definitely subscribe to this episode or this podcast so that you know when we're dropping an episode every single week. Subscribe here so you can master your health, master your HRV. And if it was valuable for you today, just share this episode. Share this episode with somebody, because I guarantee you watch people drink. Maybe you've been telling your kids, hey, we need to drink more water. Share this episode with them. Let them know why. Maybe you've been talking to your parents about getting more water into their systems because they're aging and they're not actually drinking the right type of water. Maybe you've got an athlete in your home and you want them to be better hydrated. Like, get them into this episode. Share this episode with people, because it's going to change the game for them. I always say, if you're going to create a major change that's going to have an impact overnight that you are going to notice, it's going to be either in your sleep or it's going to be in your hydration. Those are the two things that you can do actionably that are going to create the greatest change the quickest, so that you're going to realize a change in your health. And so at the end of the day, we know that your body's made up of 70% water. And if you lean into it, you're going to see a change. If you lean into it, you're going to see an impact. But it really requires you to do something different. And so no matter what you're suffering from, no matter what symptoms you're experiencing, if you change the hydration status, you're going to change the way you feel. And if you change the way you feel, you're going to continue to be willing to lean in to the changes that you're making. And so at the end of the day, you were born to heal. You were created to thrive. You were built differently, but it requires you to do things different. So that's the Own It Show. We'll see you guys next week.